Hello and welcome to Talk FCB and welcome back here to the channel, guys. And in today's video we are going to be discussing the UEFA Champions League. We are going to be breaking down the group that we have been dealt in this year's campaign. We're going to be going opponent by opponent. We're going to be looking at our schedule, and I want to take a bit more time to do this video simply to look into those teams in a bit more detail, because I think it's a group which is safe to say it will give us a very stern test in the coming months. And of course, if we want to win this competition, which we really do this year, we want to win the Champions League more than anything else, we have to see ourselves out of this group, preferably at the very top in Group B, and in our way stand Tottenham, PSV Eindhoven and Inter Milan. All three opponents are capable of posing us a threat, and in this video we are going to be looking into each of them, analysing exactly what we need to be wary of and what we need to do to navigate our way through this tricky test and get through to the knockout rounds of the Champions League. So without further ado, let's do this. And firstly, guys, let's take a look into our schedule for the group stage and exactly when we are going to be facing each of our opponents. Match day 1 will see us take on PSV at the Camp Nou in that first game. Up next then is Tottenham. We will head to Wembley Stadium, which has been confirmed by Tottenham, and that will see us go there on match day 2 at the very start of October. Following then by Inter Milan at home 3 weeks later in match day 3 towards the end of October, and then we will head to the San Siro to play the reverse fixture against Inter on the 6th of November before then taking on PSV in Eindhoven on the 28th of November. That will be match day 5 before finally the final game of our Champions League group. We will welcome Tottenham to the Camp Nou in December, which will then decide how this group goes. And just before we start breaking down these teams individually and taking a look exactly what we're up against in the coming months, I just want to point out our schedule for the month of October. Now, a lot of you guys may have already seen this, you may have already noticed this, which, as we mentioned, include 2 of those Champions League group games, but I also want to show you some extremely demanding league games which also take place in October. We kick off the month with arguably our toughest group game away at Tottenham at Wembley Stadium, and then just a few days after that, on the weekend of that week, we will face Valencia at the Mestalla. 2 really difficult away games then, and then in October, as it goes on, it actually gets even more difficult. We face Sevilla at the Camp Nou in the league, which will be followed just a few days later at home against Inter Milan in the Champions League, and that same weekend, all in the same sort of 7-8 day period, we will face Real Madrid at the Camp Nou in the first Clásico of the season. So that's 5 October fixtures there, reading as follows: Tottenham away, Valencia away, Sevilla at home, Inter at home, and Real Madrid at home, all within a few days of each other, very quickly followed one by one, really difficult fixtures. We are going to need to be 100% ready to take on October. And now let's start with our first opponent that we are going to break down, which is PSV Eindhoven, a very historic club, of course, based in the Netherlands, where they've won the Eredivisie title 24 times in total, second only to Ajax in the all-time league table, and they've also been a very regular feature in Europe over the past years. You know, they've actually won the UEFA Cup back in 1978, which, a random fact for you guys, that UEFA Cup winning team in 1978 actually included my great uncles. That's a very interesting story there. And last season, though, they didn't complete in the Champions League. They actually lost the Europa League playoff match against Osijek, which is a really poor result. They didn't actually get through to the Europa League draw as a whole. But following a poor start to that season where they lost that playoff, they certainly hit back strongly. They wrapped up the Eredivisie title with a 4-point advantage over their rivals Ajax, and they lost just 3 times in 34 matches last season. And to be fair to PSV, they've started the season with exactly the same mindset, the same sort of intentions. They've had a perfect record in the league after 4 games, sitting top of the league with 12 points and an impressive 14 goals scored in those games with just 3 conceded. And without a shadow of a doubt, the man that we need to keep a close eye on is none other than Hirving Lozano, a player that we saw light up the World Cup with Mexico, some really impressive individual displays from him, a player who can be the heart of any team given the opportunity. He can cause you a threat. His pace, his direct running, he's certainly a threat in the final third, and he can also score all kinds of different goals, whether it be from long range, close range. You don't want to allow him space in the final third because he's somebody who can not only score but also create for his teammates. And the thing about PSV as well is they do have goals right throughout their team. They're not really a team that rely all on one sort of number 9 forward to get them the goals. They do chip in right throughout their team, whether it be from midfield or their front three. They do have a team who can score right across the park, and of course they will be led by a man who's familiar with Barcelona. Mark van Bommel, their coach right now, spent a season with us during the 05-06 season, and he was actually part of the squad that won the Champions League and the league that season under Frank Rijkaard. So he'll certainly be plotting a way to get at us, try to cause a threat, and we have to absolutely make sure that we're marking Hirving Lozano, that we know what he's going to do, and make sure that we get him out the game. That's really important. We do have to be wary of PSV, and they will be a tricky opponent. Up for discussion next is Tottenham Hotspur, a team that I've actually watched very closely over the past few years, being based in the UK. Of course, they're a team that has certainly been building in the right direction for many years now. They've been signing some very good players, particularly under Mauricio Pochettino. They have started to get the structure right. They've built a real philosophy at this club. They're moving now to a new stadium, and certainly under Pochettino, former Espanyol player and coach, of course. But even despite that, I can concede he is a very, very good coach. He's fully adapted now, this Tottenham team, to his philosophy. He started first of all at Southampton, then moved his way to Tottenham, and he really loves his team to be really high energy, high intensity, and press from the front. Tottenham, every single game, they will get in your faces, they will press from the front, they will work really, really hard in that final third to really press you in, get you into a corner, and then go from there. And when they do get the ball back, they have the kind of quality, they have the kind of players to really hurt you. And in particular, we are going to need to be ready for that style of play. We are a team that likes to play out the back, likes to really start our attacks from the goalkeeper and our defenders. We are going to be ready for Tottenham, and they certainly, like I say, they've got the quality. They've got a World Cup winning goalkeeper in Hugo Lloris, a very strong defence. They base it around the likes of Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld. Trippier was really impressive at the World Cup for England. They've got a dynamic midfield, all kinds of different players in that midfield, from the likes of Eric Dyer Holding. You've got Moussa Dembele. Of course, you've got somebody like Christian Eriksen, a player that I really do admire, somebody who can create on the ball, who's got a fantastic touch, brilliant in possession. And then somebody like Dele Alli, somebody who can score, who can create, who can get into the box, who can make late runs. He is a flair player. And somebody like, as well, Lucas Moura, who's really come to fruition in recent weeks. He's got a lot of pace. Somebody like Lozano, really, that you'll need to watch out for on the counter-attack, certainly. And Heung-min Son as well will be a threat for Tottenham. And then, of course, you've got Harry Kane, somebody who won't always be involved in the build-up. He's not always going to be involved in the general flow of the game, but you cannot afford to forget about him, because given the chance, he will punish you, he'll be clinical in front of goal, and we need to see him marked out the game. And I think we really saw the pinnacle of Tottenham's evolution in the Champions League group stage last season. They topped that group, they beat Real Madrid at Wembley Stadium, and it was a real statement win, and it looked like then maybe Tottenham were going to go on to the next level, but it was unfortunate for them, really. They ended up drawing Juventus in the next round, who finished second to us, of course, in the group stage. And despite a very promising performance away from home in Turin, they came away with a 2-2 draw. It was then at Wembley that it really, really got away from them. Despite taking the lead in that game, goals from Dybala and Higuain eliminated them from the tournament, and in doing so, it still left a bit of a lingering doubt, really, on whether Tottenham have what it takes, that mentality, that real edge when it really matters in these big competitions. Have they got what it takes to get over the line? They didn't see the game out against Juventus. They struggled to get over the line. Can they do it when it really matters? Can these players handle the pressure? And after finishing last season in third place behind the two Manchester clubs, Tottenham have started this season really in the same sort of manner. They're currently in 5th place, 3 wins out of 4 games. Going into last weekend, they actually had a 100% record, but a 2-1 defeat to high-flying Watford snapped that run and really did leave Tottenham with something to think about over the international break. And I think Ernesto Valverde will need to think long and hard about Tottenham. They are a team who can hurt you. They are a team who will certainly try to combat our style of play. Playing against Pochettino is going to be tough. We are going to have to arrive with a game plan, with a strategy to navigate our way around that high pressing, that high energy game that they will bring either to the Camp Nou or at Wembley Stadium. And Valverde is going to have to get thinking. He is going to have to arrive with a plan. He will have to have a strategy in mind to take on Tottenham. But one thing that I am really, really looking forward to is Lionel Messi back at Wembley Stadium on the biggest stage in England. English football. Messi has reigned there before. Messi has captivated the imagination in that historic stadium, and I have no doubt he'll be looking to do exactly the same all over again. And finally, guys, it is time to run the rule over Inter Milan, who returned to the Champions League this season for the first time since the 11-12 season. 2 seasons prior to that win, of course, back in 2010, Inter were champions of Europe, beating Bayern Munich in the final under Jose Mourinho, which that season secured a historic treble for them, and it really was a fantastic Inter team. And of course, on their way to their 3rd Champions League title that year, we were defeated along the way. Inter knocked us out in the semi-finals following a 3-1 defeat at San Siro for us, and also an agonising 1-0 win at the Camp Nou, which just wasn't quite enough to see us through, despite some huge efforts on our side under Pep Guardiola. There was Bojan's disallowed goal, Jose Mourinho running around the Camp Nou celebrating with his arms in the air. All of that, to be honest, still gives me nightmares. So we need to really get some revenge on Inter Milan. And moving on, though, to the Inter of today, which I have to say is a very different side to that treble-winning team. They're still a very historic club. They still play at the San Siro. It'll be a very, very difficult place to go. Their fans will get behind them, but they certainly don't really have the huge quality that they once did throughout their team. And as a team as well, they're not quite as well drilled as they was under Jose Mourinho, but they are slowly making their way back up the ladder. They still pose a threat, and especially with our home games sandwiched between Sevilla and Real Madrid in the league, like we discussed earlier, it's not going to be easy. When you look at their team, you know, they've got a very, very good goalkeeper in Samir Handanovic, and for me, a world-class centre-back in Milan Skriniar, somebody that we have been linked to over the past season or so, and his partner at centre-back now as well. De Vrij is not bad either. I think Vishalico from Atletico Madrid looks a really, really good signing this summer. He had a very good World Cup with Croatia. They've got 2 other Croatians in the midfield areas, you know, Brozovic, who's got quality, Ivan Perisic, who I think is a real threat for them, capable again of scoring and creating, very good in the final third. His final ball could often be the difference in finding a Icardi or not. And although I don't particularly like his style of play, Raja Nainggolan also looks like an excellent signing in midfield, somebody who can get box to box, get himself about the pitch, and also can chip in with goals. But last but certainly not least, just like Kane for Tottenham, like I said, that clinical finisher on the end of things, Mauro Icardi for Inter Milan is somebody who won't always be involved. He's not always involved in the build-up, but he is arguably one of the most clinical finishers in world football once he gets that service. If you allow Perisic to get in the balls, if you allow them Inter to dictate and get him chances, he will finish it off, no doubt about that, and we need to be wary of what he can do in the area. And their coach, Luciano Spalletti, is a man who's orchestrated Inter's return to the Champions League, but I think he is a coach right now that is under huge pressure to deliver at this historic club. They do expect to compete in Serie A this season, and they've actually suffered a pretty shaky start of their campaign, taking only 4 points from their opening 3 games. They'll certainly be expected to improve as the season goes on, and Inter definitely do possess some quality players who can hurt you, but I just feel deep down like they are still 1 or 2 players away from being the team that they really hope to be. They really wanted another centre midfielder this summer. They pursued Arturo Vidal before we snuck in at the last minute and signed him ourselves, and then a highly ambitious move for Luka Modric failed to materialise, which has left them a bit short in those midfield areas. But like I said before, Inter still have huge historic status in Europe. They're still a massive club with a massive following, and it is never ever going to be easy to get a result at San Siro. So we certainly will, in that home fixture at the Camp Nou, sandwiched between those 2 difficult league games, we will need to be getting all 3 points from that meeting. And so that basically concludes this overview of our Champions League group, guys. In summary, I think we found ourselves here in a very challenging group with a number of high-profile matches to get excited for and get ourselves up for in this group stage. But I think we should look at that as a positive. These matches will demand, really, that we hit our highest level, that we play our best football, that we find a good rhythm for us, and that should stand us in really good stead as long as we reach the knockout stages. If we get through this group, we will come out of it the better side. We'll be ready then for those big knockout games. And of course, once these matches come around, guys, I'll have the previews and more build-up coming up for you right here on the channel. Thank you, as always, for your outstanding support. I really, really do appreciate it, guys. So leave your thoughts down below on the group that we found ourselves in here. What do you think of Tottenham? What do you think of PSV? And what do you make of Inter Milan? What kind of threats will they give us? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you soon with more videos. But until then, as always, Vesca! El Barça!